So, folks, welcome back to the latest episode of True to Your Roots. I'm joined today by some very special guests in support of Carers Week. So we'll cover some different topics today around support, adult carers and younger carers, as well as children's mental health. So we'll do a very quick round of introductions and then we'll get started. So, and the host, I'm Tyler, and nice to see you all again.
Hi, I'm Jenna Crook. I also work at Lancashire South Cumbria Foundation Trust, and my role is looking at carer experience in involvement and improvement around supporting carers across our organisation.
And I'm Susie Marsden. I'm from Lancashire Positive Minds. I'm a parent to a young person who's had mental health issues. And yeah, pleased to be here.
Good stuff. So we'll kind of kick it off. I think it's a really good topic to kind of discuss around supporting both a child as well as an older adult. So, for example, my experience, I've been supporting my mum for over 20 years now, both through physical health and in some cases also mental health. So around strategies, accessing support for services, as well as sort of almost advocating when she gets the correct support. So, what do you think is important to know when you're supporting a child, or in my case, an adult, which we'll touch upon a little bit afterwards, with their mental health journey?
I think it's important that it's that communication, isn't it? It's around, I've got teenagers, and trying to get a teenager to open up and not grunt in the bedroom is really difficult. So you have to adapt your ways. So we would use things like, I'd write a letter and say, I'm on this journey with you, I'm not going anywhere. Just to open up that communication a little bit. And sometimes it's a simple question: do you want me to help? Do you want me to listen? And that's different, because as a parent, your natural reaction is go, fix it, protect, nurture. And sometimes you just want the feelings to be heard. So it's always letting silence do the work a little bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more. You'd think with a child it'd be, and it is difficult, but it's even harder with an adult, because they know how to open some capacity, they know how to have a conversation. I think because it was with my mom, it was very difficult in the sense of she's meant to look after me, she's supposed to ask me these questions.
It's that role reversal, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So it was a case of I'd be going in and going, how do you do? Instead of me coming back from school, she's like, how's your day going?
Yeah.
She used to do that, and she still does when I come home from work now. She's like, you've had a right good day, haven't you? And I'm like, yeah, it's been great. But we're able to have that conversation. But back when she was struggling with physical health, especially in the winter months, it was quite a difficult process to open up that conversation. So I just go in with food, for example. Start eating food with her. We'd have that natural conversation. For her, it wasn't so scary to talk to us. And it was about breaking down that sort of barrier between those communication methods, so that that person feels comfortable to have that conversation. And with an adult, they know how to break down that barrier, but it's the idea of, what are they thinking? Oh, this is my son. Why would I want to have that conversation? And it's very difficult to support somebody through that journey.
And sometimes we would, like you were talking about having tea together, we would just be driving. Driving was a great distraction. So I was concentrating on the road. She didn't have to give me the eye contact. And how's your day? How are you feeling? And then she'd just be, okay, Mum wants to talk, so I'm going to start talking. And it just took that intensity off it. I think that helps, definitely.
Yeah, I think because of that process, I've got a much closer relationship with my mum now. Like she's able to pick up on my habits. I'm easily able to pick up on her habits. Like at the moment, she doesn't want to eat too much food. She's going to too much weight. It's like, we're an older lady now. Unfortunately, it's
something. I not appreciate you saying
that. I feel like I need to get that
now. But it's the type of communication we have. Like, I'm a very straight to the point individual. This is the root cause of the issue. What we need to fix it, and that's how she liked it.
Yeah.
Whereas when she was trying to access services, they tried to beat around the bush in some cases, and she thought it was a complete and total waste of her time. She'd come out there more angry than she did when she went in. Whereas when we were at home, it's like she'd go, I'm really not feeling that. What's the problem? She appreciated that direct, straight to the point sort of thing. So I suppose that the main sort of topic around that idea of communication is specific to the person you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Like there's no guidebook to it. You pick it up over time by supporting that individual, whether it be an adult or a child. But it is much more difficult when it's family.
Yeah, so much.
So that leads me on quite nicely to the next point.
So we're talking a bit about kind of what you do, Susie. So it'd be nice to know a little bit more about what Lancashire Positive Minds is, what you do, how you support other families, a bit about background, really.
Yeah. So we started in, I want to say December 2019, which feels...
Is it 2019?
2019.
Gosh.
And I set the group because my daughter's mental health, she was 15 at the time and she was struggling. And there was a gap because I couldn't process the feelings of everything that was going on at the time. And I thought, actually, I just need to talk to another parent. I just want to talk to another like-minded parent. And so we set up 2019, had our first group meeting in 2020, March. COVID happened in April.
That was timed well, wasn't it?
It was very, lousy timing. But actually, you've got to look for the positives because that virtual network built.
I can imagine.
So we've got a massive presence of nearly 1,000 families that access that virtual network where they can go on and they can just ask for advice, strategies. I need help with this. How do you cope with that? And the group naturally jump in and support each other, go, been through that, this is what worked for us, have you tried this, have you tried this service, and just signposting. It's beautiful just to watch it all unravel. And then we also offer face-to-face group meetings, so it's not like, we're sitting around circle and go, hello, I'm Susie, da-da-da-da-da. It actually looks a bit like Cadbury's Wheel because the chocolate's out, the brews are out, the fidget toys are out, because actually sometimes parents don't want to give each other the look. Tissues are always there. And it's a great place for parents just to come like-minded, no criticism, no judgment, just to go, I can breathe. I'm not going to, I can talk if I want to, I can just listen, I can just be with people that truly understand what I'm feeling at the minute. And we're professionally supported by Rachel and Karen from CAMS, which is great. And it's just a wonderful group of families who come together in difficult circumstances to support the child. And we don't stop being a parent when our children turn 18. I was expecting that, but no. So we've got parents who've got adult children and we've got grandparents who are supporting their children and grandchildren. But we also look at wider work. Where can we get involved? Where can we actually get our voices heard, and how can we make change? Because we can see things that sometimes don't work and we think, actually, can we influence some change here? So the group comes together, they get involved with the participation, get the sleeves rolled up, and it's just amazing. So proud of it.
Sounds amazing. The biggest thing for me I take from that is the feeling of not being alone. And I feel like, not to bring in my recent very different caring responsibilities with my grandma, who was then placed on end of life care, there was that feeling of alone. And a very different topic, and I just thought I'd bring in my while we were here. But, I remember we sat outside a little cafe outside the infirmary that we were in, and we were speaking to other people going through very similar, and it was a bit like, wow, how many people, just resonates. Very different, obviously, topic, but, there was nothing out there for us, but that nice little group of 6 of us just talking about what we were all going through. So I can't imagine the difference that must be making to, the hundreds, thousands of families out there who, would be in isolation otherwise and feel like, is it just them? So we've made such a massive impact on those people, and there'd be actually so many more families out there that aren't aware, likewise the whole caring community, isn't it, really? And I know people on a personal level who probably need to engage in, groups like yourselves, but maybe are too afraid to. But the benefits are amazing.
You're very right, because it can be so isolated, and talking to people about it is, you don't want to feel like a burden, you don't want them to take on your worries, and it's a lot of embarrassment, shame, all these feelings prevent us from having conversations. And really, when we can get an environment that works for people and they can open up and be themselves, it's the way we need to go.
Yeah, it's got a massive impact. I mean, a good example was before I joined this trust, people knew I was a carer, but they didn't know the story behind it. So they always thought, oh, he's just doing that. school, and I never felt comfortable to share that experience. So I took that burden with my brother. We've been dealing with it on our own. It's kids, Blackpool carers, young carers, Blackpool young carers at the time now, just Blackpool carers. Ended up finding out about our story, and we ended up going to like their youth club, which was great because other people, carers, I didn't feel like I was like this special case at school. I was unique. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be normal at that age. So those groups have massive impacts on our way of life as carers, what we think, what we perceive. It's not a lonely journey. So if I needed help, I knew where to go.
Yeah.
If I was struggling with my duties at home, I knew who to speak to, who to run to, who to sit down and listen.
Yeah.
And having that aspect of people who understood that journey, that process, made a massive difference on my life as a child growing up, carrying out those responsibilities at home. Gave me a lot of confidence, and it gave me my pride back. Like, I'm actually doing something for the benefit of my family at the time. Like, I felt amazing coming into like my teenage years. It still didn't feel comfortable to discuss it or talk about it, but I had that pride again. I didn't feel like a burden. I didn't feel different. I didn't feel like I needed to take myself away from people. At that point, I gained who I was as a person, and I've had the luxury of seeing some of the ladies come over a period of time when the group was held at Deepdale, and their own attitudes and bubbliness, laughing would come back. Remember one of the ladies that attended the group was Scottish. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm not on my own in this building anymore. She was quite quiet when she first started coming. Then she came over, we had a conversation. I was like, oh, where are you from? And had that natural conversation, and she just seemed different in a very, very positive manner. So having that, being able to see that impact happen again with somebody else, it's life-changing. Yeah. And it adds meaning back to what we do. I think that's quite important, because it's not highlighted enough on that housing topic. Or having our own personal stories, having these groups and the ability to share those impacts and those stories.
That peer support is so valuable when it's done right. Yeah. I think, like you say, there's so much that we could do to get more people known about these support groups that are out there in different organisations.
Lived experience. 100%. It's a wealth of knowledge. If you think how much things we've picked up over the years, and it would be a shame for that to be wasted and not share it. And
sharing wealth adds power to somebody else's journey. When we recently ran some sort of sessions here around confidence building. And being able to share my own experience around how my journey has given me the confidence to sit in a room full of people, actually talk to you as a human being, not a facilitator reading off PowerPoint. No, let's have a conversation, let's bounce off of each other. They look at me and they go, "What 12, mate? Why are you sharing all
Take that one."
I'll thank you very much for the compliment. This is why, and I'll share my story. Not all of it, but the parts that are important to their journey, so they can pick up that
and relate.
It's creating that experiences.
We had a little chat about this yesterday, actually, to give you a lift, didn't I, yesterday? And we were talking about, naturally, I think when you are supporting someone in whatever capacity that might be, and you become an advocate, I feel like, as a young person, Tyler, that's where it talks about confidence and around, having that voice and feeling like we can. And I feel like even though we talk about some of the impacts it has on us in not a negative way, but maybe something that isn't as a positive light sometimes, some things are actually quite positive in terms of that.
Strength.
Yeah, and when we talk about your identity and kind of, we talk about caring, they use the word being a burden and stuff like this, but actually this is part of someone's identity. And for me, as someone who was caring for someone who's sadly now not here, I feel like I've lost a little bit of my identity now. The person that I'm going to get upset, the person who I loved isn't here. So I completely, I think that's a big area that is not discussed around the positives around that role. And not making it such a negative thing. Actually, is power with knowledge and how important we are. Is that person who's supporting someone and what we can bring. So
I mean, the modern world is run by experience. No, you can do your qualifications, and they will give you an idea. Experience will give you a reason.
Definitely.
So having done caring for so long, looking after people, I work for the NHS now, so it's transferable skill sets. So whilst I have my own professionally developed skill sets, that is just a natural part of who I am. So if somebody comes in and they're not in a good state, I will pick up on it first.
Yeah.
Immediately. So being in front of house in that respect means that I'm able to just take that situation, support that individual, and I'll make sure they leave. And if they don't, I'll have them back the next day. It's that natural progressional part of it. People will pick that up as they age. Carers have to pick it up quicker because in some cases it is the difference between life and death. Yeah. And if it becomes natural progression, and that is a positive skill set to keep up because it means that we're able to pick up on those key points that other people might miss. They won't ignore them, they just might miss them.
Those behaviours and everything else, the personality, and
Definitely.
You can sense it, can't you?
Yeah. So I call it, my mom refers to it as a spidey sense. I like that.
I like that. That's a good one to use.
Spidey sense.
Yeah.
She's naturally seen that progression over time, and she is still the mother at the end of the day. So she will comment where she feels like she needs to. Being able to see that difference from when I was a wee boy to where I am now, it's massive. And she likes to remind, as much as I don't like it, she does like to remind me of it on a daily basis. And I think that is important, and that is the beauty of these groups. They are doing that between them as friends, making those friendships, those connections. So they're not removing that aspect. I'm actually having to do this on my own. Because the sad reality is, yes, you are.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to feel.
That's it. It's nice when we see people at group and they naturally gravitate to somebody who they've made that connection with in that very similar boat. And, you know, I hate breaking up and going, but guest speaker, because they're just like, and I hate breaking that up because that's how the connections are made, aren't they? And that's how we share our experiences.
And I imagine, I think that they've got obviously a friendship as well outside of the groups.
We wild swim.
You know, exactly. So it's all around that, isn't it? Around building, you know, how hard it is to make some friends when you're getting old. They say, don't they, as soon as you get into an adult life, it's harder to make friends. Yeah. I mean, I love talking to anyone, but building that friendship. So when you've got commonality, you get common ground, and you've built up those rapports, how amazing it is that they've got, you know, them friendships as well.
And we have to look after each other, because if we're not strong as parents and carers, we know the people who we're caring for actually, you know, we have to look after our own selves and our own mental health, and, you know, we actively wild swim and just take ourselves off in the middle of the lake somewhere and off we go just to recharge. It's so important.
One of the topics I like to discuss around care is the aspect of respite. It's often quite overlooked. You know, at the end of the day, we are human beings. We have what I call a social battery. Yeah. And over time, that battery drains. Yeah. And having that aspect of respite, whether it be a support group or time on your own, or going on a trip or whatever, it's quite important. Yeah. Because whilst we are carers, we do neglect at times to look after ourselves, which means the person we're looking after also feels the same way. Yeah. Don't apply ourselves as well as we could be. So these groups do allow for that aspect of respite, so that when they go back into that caring role at the end of the group, they're socially recharged.
That's it.
So they're able to continue that good amount of care and support to that friend, family, next door neighbour. You know, so it's fantastic to see that these groups do happen. So if you are interested in finding out a wee bit more about Lancashire Positive Minds, scan QR code, magic on screen somewhere, where you can find out a wee bit more about the group, or you can contact Susie Marsden directly. Contact details magically on screen somewhere. But I would heavily suggest it. Having seen the impact myself as both a member of staff and through my own aspect as a carer, it is fantastic. So if you know somebody that could potentially benefit from that support, or even might be interested in it, sign up. But that leads us on to our very last question from Susie regarding Jenna.
Yeah, so Jenna, the triangle of care. So can you tell us about the triangle of care and across Lancashire and South Cumbria Trust?
Yeah, of course I can. So the triangle of care is something that we've signed up to as an organisation. It's an external accreditation from Carers Trust. And essentially, I believe, I wasn't working here in 2010, I think I was still in high school in 2010, a group of carers were involved in the production of the triangle of care. And this was because adults at the time, looking after the loved ones, felt like they weren't involved and supported as a carer. The voice wasn't listened to. And they were really getting frustrated about that because what we just talked about, they've got the knowledge, they understand the person the best, they want to contribute and help that loved one, and they weren't getting through. So Carers Trust collaborated with these carers and they developed a set of standards. And those standards cover the basics of getting people involved. So are we identifying that someone's a carer, which is a whole topic in itself, which we'll get onto, I imagine. Are we giving information about the service? Actually, if you've never been to CAMS before, what is CAMS? As a parent, it's, what is that? What does it mean? What support am I going to get? Do we know there's local support out there? We've just referenced Susie's group and other local organisations. Do we know about consent and all that, policy share, information sharing and all that? Have we got dedicated champions and roles? Obviously, within the trust, I support this agenda, but there's lots more that we can do. And then the big thing is around raising awareness and training. So these are the 6 standards that I discussed. I'm sure Tyler will link somewhere on the screen how to access more information about Triangle of Care magically. So as an organisation, what we're trying to do, and it's very much a work in progress, is trying to get staff more confident around engaging with carers. This is my big take home from the Triangle of Care. You can implement all these standards. We could get staff to get trained up, this, that and the other, introduce policies and procedures. But for me, the big thing is we don't talk about the caring agenda enough. And I think we're getting there. I've been in the trust for years and I see more people talking about carers and what support's out there and what we can do. But there's still that lack of confidence in staff around engaging with carers, especially around the consent element. So we've got a long way to go, but we are doing well. So with the Triangle of Care, we basically engage with all teams. So I think we've got, you might know more than me, I don't know. I'm going to get ballpark figure 200 teams. Wow. That's including inpatient, obviously all our children, young people services, home treatment teams, community mental health teams, and obviously we've got physical health as well. We just want as many people to engage with it, to understand the benefits. So what we want to understand is how important the carer's voice is in making that loved one better and keeping them well, actually. That you understand, I understand. We know our loved one better than anyone else. Yeah. We know when things are going well. We know when the signs of things that aren't going so well. And sometimes we are their voice,
advocate.
Exactly. And again, my experience with my grandma when she was in hospital and she had a seizure and couldn't speak, I had to be her advocate, and be her voice. And there's people out there who don't have that. And actually how lucky are health professionals to know that we've got all this information, the wealth of knowledge we can give them. So the Triangle of Care is applied to any setting, both mental health and physical health. But predominantly mental health is definitely an improvement that needs to be made. So just before I go into any questions that you've got me, but we are doing well. We've got 7,000 staff trained up now in carers awareness, which is fantastic. I'm not saying that we're perfect, but I think it's getting that message across around what needs to happen and what we need to do. But there's still a lot of work that needs to happen. That is just a whistle stop of the Triangle of Care. I'm sure more information will be put on the screen at some point. Magically.
So I think from both a staff and a caring perspective, what sort of impact have you seen come from teams meeting the standard?
Yeah.
And what's that meant for both the team and the people that support it? What impact has that had?
So it's varied. It is varied, and that's because some teams are more ahead of the game. Some teams have less contact with carers compared to others. So it all depends on the service. Now, I've had some good examples of, I'd say, predominantly more inpatient wards where, say, for example, they've been greeted, they've had an introduction to the ward with the ward manager and had that initial welcome, which actually, if you've never been to an inpatient ward, you don't know what it's like. How daunting must that be? So having that introduction, come and meet the ward manager, come and say hello, any questions you've got, an opportunity for the family then to voice, any history, any concerns that might influence their care and treatment, and then being involved throughout the care and planning process. I'll not name word, but there was a particular ward whose champion, she was pregnant, and she was given this as a bit of more of a full-time role. across their ward, the difference that made because of the communication, and it links back into this. She was a point of contact throughout the patient's journey and the carer's journey. So sitting in on meetings, she was being the voice if they weren't there. She was ringing up if consent had been withdrawn. She was on it all the way through. And I feel like that role needs to be more established across the trust and not an add-on to a role. So there's pockets of impact. There's no measurable data because obviously how can you measure how someone was involved other than the digital system? But from the feedback that they've been given as a ward in this particular area, it had excelled. Yeah. So I think it just shows that learning that we need to do to involve. And the biggest take home when you speak to carers is communication. Yeah. I just want to be told what's going on.
Yeah. And heard and listened.
And heard, yeah. That's all. Not asking for much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, this is where staff aspects of my role comes back in. We work with some of those wards to co-produce and also gather feedback around what people think are missing. And there is a noticeable difference in how people are communicated with. Mm-hmm. This person has expressed this interest because, and hearing that because they're a carer aspect of it is fantastic because it makes me all happy. It's like, okay, I can support this person. I'm not saying that I'm specific to support the carer, but I can relate more to that story. Yeah. So hearing those words from wards now goes, okay, what have we got? How can we work with these individuals to support that communication? So it's really, really important and impressive. Yes. It does have an impact because, as we've discussed already, communication is probably the most important aspect of working with a carer. Because some carers need little information, some carers want the full story.
Yeah.
And working with those people, learning these standards means that you're better equipped for to support those people. So fantastic.
Yeah, it's just creating positive relationships, isn't it? And not seeing, like we talked about, the negative sides. Actually, it's positive for everyone. I should have mentioned before, actually, the triangle of care. The triangle represents the service user, the carer, and the professional. So the kind of analogy is, if one of them were to leave, it won't be a triangle anymore. It would break the triangle. We need everyone in that triangle to be involved in order to get the best outcomes and have that therapeutic relationship to support everyone on that agenda. And I think, again, not to, we want the service user to be well and be better. But what you've mentioned earlier, this is around supporting the carer. If the carer was unwell, what would happen then? Yes. And I think this is something that we need to really ingrain in our staff, is around remembering that person, if say they're on a ward, as an example, has a family, and where they're going back to, are they getting the right support?
Yeah.
And again, from a physical health perspective, that question was never asked to us, even though I was sleeping in the hospital 24 hours. There was never really how are you?
Yeah.
And that's all sometimes it needs, is just, how are you? So there's a passion of mine that I think as well, because obviously very different, very free different caring roles. But now I've experienced something a bit more personal, very personal to me. It's really made me passionate about this side of supporting me and actually you all as individuals, and how important that is, and being okay to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. So,
I mean, I think I tried this on something we were developing the carers training. I'm going to try to remember it a wee bit now. My memory is shocking. But not supporting a carer today, patient tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which means more waiting lists, more workloads.
Yeah.
So having that person on your side, you have all the knowledge at your disposal that you require to support your service users. Because at the end of the day, that's that person's friend, neighbour, family member. They go home with that individual. They know how to support them.
The experts.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think, as a trust as well, we've seen that, and especially our workforce. So obviously Tyler has been very open from the start around, your caring responsibilities, and then there's a few people in the team, and our team directly, who are carers for individuals. And when we've gone out to the wider workforce, we've got to think, there's how many? It's 12,000 in our trust.
There were 7 when we started.
Yeah, maybe I've made that message. I'm sure it's 12, but I could be wrong.
It's a big number.
Yeah, we'll make sure we got the number correct. But when you think about how many carers that are in our organisation working and probably accessing our services as well, and they probably not even aware of what support's out there, it's just such a big agenda. And I think the trust, I agree, I think we are doing more to support.
Yeah, I feel more supported in this career option than I have in my past.
Which is really positive.
Which I think is quite important to highlight, that not all employers seek to support carers, unfortunately. But during the 3 years within the trust so far, it's still here, so that to me means it's a good thing so far, I hope. So it's 100% moving in the right direction, taking on board that feedback and creating an actual plan from it, opposed to just going, cool, you've been listened to, you never hear it.
Yeah.
Whereas now there are active support streams. You will receive an email, whether it be phone call, meeting. You will receive some form of support that's beneficial to you as an individual, which I think is the step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So, closing question for everybody now. So, I think I like to try and end on a more positive aspect, but because we are community roots, we do like to hear feedback regarding certain topics, so in this case, carers, and then co-produce with lived experience experts as well as professional experts. So I'll ask you both a question. A topic with no context, well, with context, but the question will provide the context, but just a topic, and that we'll leave it on that. So what do we think is missing for carers? Now that's all carers, young, adult. What do we think is missing?
I think it's an understanding of the journey that we're on, because we are those experts for those people that we're caring for, but it's an understanding of what other systems and services we're trying to navigate through, trying to understand, in order to fully understand that person as a whole, I think. So there's a lot of seeing that person to be seen, to be heard, to be valued as, yes, I am a carer, but I'm Susie as well. I'm mum, I'm everything. So it's understanding that person as a whole, I think.
What about yourself, Jenna?
So, I don't know if it was missing, but the only thing that came to mind was self-identification. That's what I was thinking. So, just from listening from today, but obviously as well, other people I know, it's would I ever define myself as a carer for my grandma? No. She was my grandma.
Yeah.
Mum. No. Yeah. Son. Whoever. What role we think we have, and I think that's the biggest part for me. And someone actually told me, I think it's a carers organisation, I think it takes someone 5 years to identify themselves as a carer.
Wow.
Something along that. That could be completely wrong, but I'm sure it's around 5 years. And it actually is true, because you would never say yourself you're a carer.
No.
That's just you. I was just giving back, you want to fix and help, and you want to support it. It's we all just do our best because we love our loved ones and want to do the best for them. So I'd say it's that self-identification, and actually, like you said, the journey and realising what support you need as a carer, and not forgetting you in all of that, and not feeling guilty for feeling a certain way throughout
taking
that.
Those breaks and recharging,
for crying and having a minute or getting frustrated. We're all human. We're trying our best.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for myself as the host?
I don't think so. Jeez.
No, thank you.
Good stuff. So, folks, that's today's episode. If you have any questions, as always, you can always use the comment section down below, or always just pop us an email. I just want to express thanks to the ladies for joining us today to discuss these topics. Now, if you have any questions mentioned before, use all the bits and bobs, but take care.